Hello everybody and welcome. More than 10 years ago, I was one of the teenagers that was really shocked and sad when Apple announced they were going to switch to Intel processors. I never really got over it, that's why I still use my G5 Quad almost every day, but I was always curious to know how much better are the Intel Macs. So I finally got a first review, the Mac Pro 1.1, and I'm gonna put them really to fight each other. I'm gonna run professional applications, games, check boot performance, energy consumption, and answer all the questions that you wanted to know about Macs when they were transitioned to Intel. I'm also gonna try to cover in the end a few aspects of really performance per watt and how much better the system got, because you know the era between 2002 and 3 and 2006 and 7 was, in my opinion, the time when we experienced the biggest sensible performance improvement. It's not that like there were no improvements anymore, but at the time things really made a difference. A computer from 2002 could not handle things that a computer from 2005 could, and nowadays a computer from 2006, 7, 8, 9 can still browse the internet, handle few games and office applications, but at the time it really would make a difference. For example, Logic became able to handle much more than it could before, and it makes a difference between being able to finish a project without having to have a cluster of machines or running it on your single computer or even your laptop. One thing that blows my mind is how bad the Mac Pro speakers are, or maybe only one speaker. Apple has always shipped pretty decent speakers in their products and being even careful to, for example, in the case of the Mac Mini or even the G5, add some equalizer to the speaker to make it sound the best it can. Very nice attention to detail they don't have anymore. So let's listen to the G5 now. Now let's check the Mac Pro. I have the impression really that the Mac Pro sounds like a broken radio. Let's begin with the differences. The Mac Pro has 2 optical drive bays and the G5 has only 1. I don't know anyone who has actually installed a second drive. I think this has never been opened ever, but the possibility is there, thanks to the smaller Intel motherboard. The G5 has only one USB 2 and one FireWire 400 ports together with the headphone jack in the front panel. And the Mac Pro has 2 USB 2 ports, a FireWire 400 and a FireWire 800. Later Mac Pros have 2 FireWire 800 ports. On the back things are very different. You still have the same options of I/O, no changes there, but Apple has done a few important modifications on how the machine is designed. You will still find the pair of Ethernet ports, one FireWire 400 and 800, optical in and out, line in and out, and the 3 USB ports. But instead of being in a vertical row, they are more compact. Cooling has changed as well. The 2 fan exhausts are redundant on the G5 Quad because the air gets all mixed. But before, when you have the dual processors with separated fans, the system could spin up only one fan and keep the other one idle if you are using an application that uses only one processor. But on the quad, and the late liquid pump ones, the ones with a single pump, the heat just gets distributed everywhere. The Mac Pro has a single exhaust. The air flows in, goes through the processor and then goes out. It's a much slower airflow. The power supply has changed as well. The Mac Pro has a PC standard power supply on the top. Well, maybe not PC standard, but it doesn't cover the whole length of the chassis. The G5, on the other hand, has a low profile 1U power supply that goes through all the chassis. It has to push air faster to achieve the same airflow, so it is louder. However, I like more the fact that it's on the bottom because it's easier to cable manage. The cable goes from here, the thickest cable is a power cable, and it goes from here to wherever you want without crossing all the other cables that are connected to your computer. The PCI slot situation is better on the Mac Pro. You still have 4 slots, but any big card such as a graphics card like the Quadro will not occupy the second slot. So here the problem is I cannot use the second PCI slot because the Quadro is too high. The Mac Pro, however, even though it has 5 gaps, it has only 4 slots, and if you use a wide graphics card, wide is the word I was looking for, it will not occupy the second slot. The G5 has a plastic cover to redirect airflow, something that doesn't exist on the Mac Pro. And once you remove, you can see the slots. You have here 4 slots, 16, 4, 8 and 4. 16 is occupied by the graphics card. The second one is done because, well, the card is super long and high. And then I have here 2 full-length slots also occupied, 2 full-length boards with my SSDs occupying the 2 other slots. You can see also how much cleaner the slot area, the PCI slot area is. The card is very small. It doesn't take any extra power, doesn't require any cooling. Of course, it's much worse than the Quadro, but it keeps the space clean, and you have all the 3 slots available here. And here is where your Bluetooth and airport cards would go. Here you can see the fan for the PCI slots. It's just a huge blower instead of 2 small fans like the G5. I think there are 2. Here you can see I have an SSD hanging there. Totally not recommended. I'm gonna glue it here somehow. The RAM is situated here. You have 4 slots, allowing you to install up to 16 gigs of DDR2 ECC RAM. And if you remove the fans, you can change the RAM without having to disconnect everything from the computer or take it further apart. And here are the riser cards for the RAM. Instead of the RAM going straight into the motherboard, they are installed into this riser card. You just pull the card out. I did this in the other video, so I'm not going to repeat it here. Put the RAM in and slide the riser card back in. And I assume the processor heat sinks are here, and the CPUs are one here and the other one here. And inside this huge panel here, you have the liquid cooling system and the 2 dual-core G5s. As you can see, my setup is a bit different today. The G5 is driving the left side of the display, and the Mac Pro is driving the right side of the display. This is possible because I'm using the rebadged version of the IBM T221 in my opinion, the best monitor ever made, period. And it can synchronize any source, arrange it on the screen as you want. As you can see here, we have two computers, and I'm going to zoom in the screen a bit so it is visible. Yeah. So here you have on the left the G5 quad, and on the right you have the Mac Pro Xeon, first generation. They are both running the same software release and the same review of all applications installed, so the benchmark is fair. So let's start with Geekbench. I'm also going to be monitoring in the meantime the power consumption of the computers. At the moment the G5 is idling at 194 watts and the Mac Pro is idling at 148 watts. So let's get to it. I will try to click on both of them at the same time. So 3, 2, 1, go. The Mac Pro is now using the same amount of power as the G5 idling, 193 watts, and the G5 is using incredibly high 323 watts. Let's see where this goes. The Mac Pro is done. The G5 is still going. And the G5 is done. I'm gonna stop the video now, export the results, and then put them on a very nice table now, after I edit the video. Now it's time for some OpenMark. Both computers are scoring at exactly 1420-ish FPS, and that's very unlikely, so I suspect there is some limit on the program. Both computers have different architectures, different graphics cards, so it's just strange. But in any case, let's run the benchmark and see who wins this one. So 3, 2, 1, run. It's not a good day for the Mac Pro. The Quadro is clearly much superior than the option. Today is clearly not a good day for the Mac Pro. This test is not a good one for the Mac Pro. It's clear that the Quadro is much better than the standard GeForce that comes on the Mac Pro. So let's see how long does it take and how much each computer is going to score. So now the performance will be exactly half. Now the G5 has 60 FPS and the Mac Pro is running at 30 FPS. the Mac Pro gave up with 8,000 points, 8,128. The Mac Pro is still going at 16 FPS and a lot of triangles, almost 10 million. I'm going to stop recording this now because otherwise I'm going to just be waiting for this to finish. The G5 is done and it scored 15,501. The Mac Pro scored 8,128. Now it's time to run some XBench fun. First I'm going to run the internal disks against each other, and afterwards I'm going to run a test on the PCIe SSDs on the G5 just to compare the performance. So 3, 2, 1, go. We are done. I'm going to copy again the results and prepare a table, but the difference is not really big. The G5 scored 138 and 42, and the Mac Pro scored 170. On the CPU tests, the results are mixed, but the Mac Pro still scores a bit more. It has some advantages in floating point. I can see the G5 depending on what you're doing, and the memory seems to perform a bit better as well, and I've heard of that before that the Mac Pro with the buffered RAM has some disadvantages. I'm quite surprised that the Mac Pro scores better on Quartz, because the G5 has a much better graphics card, and surprisingly the Mac Pro scored also better on OpenGL. The G5 went better on the disk tests, much better actually, except on a few points. I'm not sure it's because of the bad SSD, but something to be checked later. The Mac Pro has a really cheap SSD. I bought the cheapest one I could find at the time. The next test will be Logic, and I'm loading here the Spaceman demo song that comes with Logic Pro 9, and once the songs finish loading, I'm gonna run them on both computers at the same time and zoom in on activity monitor so we can compare processor usage on both machines. The two machines should handle any demo song fine. The real tests are gonna come when we start throwing the G4s into the game. The songs have finished loading and now I'll play them. So the G5 is averaging 10% more CPU utilization compared to the Mac Pro, but they are just both handling the song very fine. I think if I would have a 2 GHz Mac Pro, the one I actually wanted to get for comparison, the G5 would be faster in many cases. CPU utilization is pretty comparable. If you open the logic monitor, and as you can see, both systems can handle such project very fine. If you need an audio workstation, either one of them will do the job very well without any issues. I have reduced down the resolution of the screens to 1920 by 1200, so you can see the G5 on the left, the Mac Pro on the right, and I'm gonna do some gaming. I'm gonna try 2 of the highest end PowerPC games ever released. One of them is Quake 4 and the second one is Explain. I'm actually gonna start with Explain. Let's begin with the Mac Pro. I don't know why Explain is crashing, so I'm gonna skip it for now and go for Quake 4. The frame counter is already on. Let me just reposition the camera a bit. I'm gonna quickly review the settings. So we have 1920 by 1200 Ultra, and that's how I run it on the G5. CPU multi-core is enabled, everything set to yes except anti-aliasing, so we should be good to go. Back, we can just do new game and watch the demo.